My name is Randall Morn. I was hired on as a cameraman for the film Dr. Time.
My name is Matt Kenner. I am the lead director of photography, or was the lead director of photography on Dr. Time, I should say.
I first heard about Dr. Time in film school. I actually did a paper on it about how many times it met pre-production and then just never came into production. Knowing so much about the background, I shouldn't be as surprised as I am about the disaster that unfolded during the production of this movie.
I first heard about Dr. Time maybe 15 years ago. Apparently the script had been running around major studios for about 20 years, and there was this huge vision. It was supposed to be this iconic film, you know, one that would go down in the history of cinema forever.
With this machine, I can change everything. I can change the world. I can change time.
Now, everybody in film school heard of Dr. Time way before, we got signed on for Dr. Time. It's always been buzzed about. It's been around for, probably 20 years, being rumored that it was coming out. So when I got a chance to be on the project, it was a pretty big deal to me. Just to be camera operator was something I could be proud of.
We traveled all over the world for this movie. We went to China, Tibet, Timbuktu, Ethiopia, Gary, Indiana, Seattle, Washington, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Quebec City, Quebec, Paris, France, Bangkok. Where else did we go? The Amazon. We went to the ruins in Latin America.
Some seriously wild and long nights out there.
I don't even speak any of these languages. This was the first kind of major experience for me in other countries around the world. Like, we went to some place in Asia, and there were these market people, and they were saying, "Would you like to try duck? Would you like to try duck?" I said, "Yeah, I would love to try some duck. That sounds delicious." And they pulled a dog out of the back room. I didn't want to eat a dog. That's gross.
Yeah, that happened. Our production team was like nothing I've ever seen. I don't know who put it together, but it was awful.
So unfortunately, we had this pompous and just condescending fat director. Most of the production money ended up going to his drinking habit.
Our director, Jacques Lebleur, I don't know where they found this guy, but he was something else. He was a problem director from the start.
When we were abroad in other countries, it was left up to us to get this movie done because he would just spend all of his money on sleazy women.
He disappeared for days on end when we would be traveling.
He would walk around the streets late at night and try and find the red light district wherever we were. I mean, we traveled all over the world for this movie, and he just was nowhere to be found.
It was pretty clear that he had a drinking problem and a gambling problem right off the bat.
If he was working, he was drunk. If he wasn't working, he was passed out in his trailer. That's how bad this guy was.
There was no coordination there, and things fell apart rather quickly.
When we were abroad in other countries, it was left up to us to get this movie done because he would just spend all of his money on sleazy women.
I basically took it upon myself to become assistant director, even though I was head director, directing almost everything. Zach was never around.
The guy was a nightmare.
It was pretty clear pretty quickly that he wasn't going to be there for us.
So many hookers. Ooh.
Once I contacted the production team and they realized, who was really running the show, my next check was out of this world. I could not believe it. We were getting paid for doing this, and that's the only reason I stayed, is we were getting paid well.
I got a fat paycheck, I'll tell you that. It was more money than I've ever seen before. You think I got paid more money? I mean, I shouldn't really tell you what I got. Let's just say it was a lot of zeros. You know what I'm saying? But if I got a lot of zeros, just imagine how much the director got. I mean, he was spiraling out of control on this booze, drug, and hooker binge.
This story doesn't really have a hero. You know, most stories you need a character that you root for. And I guess Dr. Time is the character you're rooting for, but the whole time he's kind of always doing bad things, you know. He's very selfish, and he's changing the world for himself. So really there's no reason you should like him.
It worked. It worked. It worked. It worked. I did it. I did it. I'm gonna be a god.
Dr. Time is basically trying to change the past so that the future is better for himself. He goes back in time and he makes all types of changes, but every time he comes back, he realizes nothing's different.
Didn't work. What do I do?
He finds out that the structure of time is more solid than he thought. And he soon decides that he needs to make a dramatic change to weaken the law of time.
Oh, I know exactly what I'm gonna do. Milwaukee.
He decides to go back in time and kidnap himself as a boy. And what this does is it removes him from the timeline. Since his childhood self is extracted from the timeline, he never goes through any of the things in life. People never meet him. So now his younger self and himself are just kind of rogues through time.
You have to come with me.
No way! Where?
Through time and space.
I should trust him. Call me after all.
But what this also does is creates a time paradox.
My God, what are you? I know who you are. You're an alternate, polar opposite version of me. I gotta fix this.
What the paradox ends up being is a alternate evil version of Dr. Time who has all of his thoughts and memories, but is a psychopath. The plot soon becomes that Dr. Time is fighting against his own mistakes, to right his own wrongs, and to fix this paradox that eventually will destroy all time and space.
Doctor, I'm gonna kill you, Doctor. I'm gonna kill you, Doctor. I'm gonna kill you, Doctor.
I am the director of photography, or was, but I captured all this beautiful footage in Asia, all over the country, until the fire happened.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it was the cigars, but I'm going to say it was the cigars. I caught the director at least 3 times before the fire with a cigar hanging out of his mouth, just drunk and passed out.
The fire spread through the hotel room so fast, we weren't able to salvage almost any of the equipment. Zach fell asleep with one of his cigars, and may he rest in peace. It just happened so fast. we got back to the States, we had almost nothing to show for it. So we had to put our heads together on how we were gonna show something to the producers. So we had no footage to show these producers, and we had zero budget, and we were attempting to make a multi-million-dollar budget movie. So we took my almost studio apartment, put up some green fabric, and made a green screen. We went on Craigslist looking for actors, and we just tried to use as many resources as we could. We were all students in film school, so it was kind of fresh in our minds still, the whole no-budget production system.
All right, now I'm gonna have you.
I don't know what I was thinking, but we needed exotic scenery, so my first thought was, let's go to the museum. We ended up buying tickets to the Milwaukee Public Museum. Those guys there were great. I love that place. And we just shot on location there. We weren't allowed to bring any equipment, any extra lighting, really no crew to the museum, and we had to work around, the public. So we went in there with some over-the-shoulders and just started shooting at angles that were believable. We got a lot of exotic scenery out of that shoot. The look on the producers' faces when we showed them, though, was just kind of utter disbelief. At first, we tried to sell it to them that those were shots from China and India and stuff, but none of the animals were moving. They're all stuffed in exhibits at the museum. I tried to pitch the idea that maybe Dr. Time could stop time as well as travel through time, and that's why everything was frozen. That idea was shot down pretty quickly. I thought it was a good idea, but clearly it was an idea made out of a necessity. It wasn't the original plan.
This one's cool.
The script for Dr. Time was brilliant as was, but with zero budget, we had to bend the rules and change some of the serious plot lines. So I was at a bar one night talking about the production, and this random stranger came up to me, and he clearly was a Doctor Who fan. So he first just started accusing me of copyrights and all this kind of stuff. He didn't really know what he was talking about, but he had valid points. I also am a Doctor Who fan. It's a great show, and I try really hard to make sure that our plots don't intertwine too seriously. There's a lot of movies about time travel, whether it's Terminator or the series Doctor Who or the movie Time Machine. There are a lot of different laws that all these movies follow, but basically they all follow the same kind of principles. Now, me and this guy, we started getting into it pretty deep about the rules of time travel. Now, this guy's asking me, is he just a time traveler, or does he travel through space and time? Because if he's just a time traveler, then he'll never really move positions, He'll just go forward and backwards in time, but stay in the same location. If he can travel through space and time, then he can start traveling to different locations. So apparently, our guy travels through space and time. So I also threw at him that our guy could stop time and walk around while time is stopped. And that, another argument, it's fiction, okay? It's fiction. So time travel isn't real, I believe was one of the final things I said to this guy, and finished my beer and was on my way. Now that we've established time travel isn't real, after that conversation, I felt a lot more free to take this production into my own hands and kind of just bend the rules of time. We went on Craigslist for actors, and the first one we found was a guy who simply went by the name Nighthawk. We found him in a dark dive bar in West Dallas. This guy is going on ranting about all types of things, aliens and Wisconsin cheeses, and just weird stuff. But he seemed like he fit the role, and he had a lot of energy. So we offered him some money. Really, we bought him 2 beers and offered him more beer afterwards. and he was on board.
The first Doctor Time was okay, but once he figured out he wasn't getting paid, he upped and skedaddled. Last I heard, I think he ended up at Toyota or something. He was kind of weird anyway.
So we found our second Dr. Time on Craigslist. This guy was kind of eccentric. He was pretty wild, but he had a lot of energy, so we brought him aboard.
The second Doctor Time was pretty spectacular. All right, he was way better than the first one, and he at least had more emotion to his character.
We brought him aboard just because he said yes, really, and we were pretty desperate at this point. We found out pretty quickly that he was homeless, and it worked to our advantage because he seemed really excited about working just for food.
I think he was homeless. He tended to work for free meals. He kind of just acted however he wanted to, though. I mean, no one could stop him. He would just go on these crazy tirades and laugh and be ridiculous, like a homeless guy.
Some of the things that we had Dr. Time do were just ridiculous. We had him do a lot of the dialogue, and the old Dr. Time had done a lot of the action, and we decided for some reason that it was a good idea just to leave it like that. So there's two different Dr. Times consistently through the movie, and we never really explained why. Probably one of the reasons that the producers pulled the plug.
Gotta crank up these beats.
I remember there was a suggestion that we have him, change form when he travels through time. But there was another time-traveling hero that basically does everything our time-traveling hero does, except he does his in a police box. So we weren't really allowed to travel too far down that road without getting sued. Getting serious, and we needed to decide what time travel effect were we going to settle with. We had played around with several. We had the chroma cloth time travel, which is us basically just lowering and raising green cloth in front of the green screen, making him appear to disappear.
1970s Cleveland. Oh no!
We had the chroma pop, which was our circular green screen, and then we just made that look kind of like a portal. We finally decided to end with this kind of dissolving in, dissolving out kind of effect, and he kind of fades out, And we were playing around with the editing software, but we felt like that was a lot better than the jump cut or the cheesy green screen going up and down. So adding a couple sound effects to that, and boom, there you have it. We have the time-traveling effect of Dr. Time.
Scanning for life forms. Life forms detected.
I gotta hang on!
Give up now, Doctor.
Not today! I'm not gonna die today!
Yeah, the concept for the Time Soldier was kind of a super soldier hunter that could hunt and track so well that he could track through time and stuff, We hired on an ex-Marine, a vet out of Afghanistan, to be our Time Soldier. He's the only one we actually did pay. We had one shoot with him. We only had enough money to pay him for an hour, so he came in and he did his thing. So we kind of changed the plot a little. Instead of having one perfect hunter that could follow a trail through time, you know, following Dr. Time. We made it that there were hundreds of these kind of clone droids.
Do you really think you can defeat us?
You know, half man, half robot
We
kind of
trained our
super
lives for
soldiers.
this moment.
And they made hundreds of them. And since they didn't have another time travel device for each of them, they just sent them back one by one to different eras of time. So now there's, you know, hundreds of these single time soldiers in different eras, and their one sole mission is to find Dr. Time. That was the main antagonist of the production, was hundreds of time soldiers chasing our hero through time.
Time soldiers. Shell hamburgers.
There's probably like 50 or 60 of them that never encountered Dr. Time, that probably just started their own lives. You know, maybe they found love or opened up a pizza shop. Who knows?
There's more of them!
You know, I find myself a lot of times thinking of the other side, the villains of the movie, the government, you know, trying to contain this this guy who's, you know, basically a time terrorist, changing whatever he wants at will, just to, you know, to benefit himself. Basically, they pulled the plug for Dr. Time, and that was when I started my negotiations. This had been the 7th attempt at Dr. Time in the last 15 years. The rights for the movie are just sold from producer to producer to producer. It's almost an inside joke that it's the cursed movie. I did a paper on it in film school. It's kind of wild how unlucky the producers of this movie get.
It was pretty ridiculous.
What I ended up doing was offering them a lot of money for the rights to Dr. Time. And that is something they did agree on. I think the fact that the production company saw an opportunity to make any money back on this train wreck of a production was what did it for them.
My heart's always been there for this. The story meant so much to me that when the movie wasn't happening, I took all of this footage and assembled a crew, and we're making this documentary without Zach LeBlur.
I'm making this little documentary just to earn a little bit of money, and then we can maybe pitch an idea or something to a bigger production company.
It was a wild time, but I wouldn't take it back for anything.
I mean, what can I say? I started this production as just a cameraman right out of school with no expectations, and less than 2 years later, I'm a producer, I'm running my own crew, I have my own production company now, and we're starting the real wheels in motion for a couple of movies. Not Dr. Time yet. That one, that's special to me. We got to be ready for that one. I don't want to be the 8th disaster on that list, but we're going to start production. Everyone talked about how Dr. Time was this cursed movie, but for me, it was the best luck I've ever had.